Okay, that is a friend of the deceased testifying in court earlier today. Let's bring in my two great guests that I have joining me now. I have Lisa Lockwood. She is a crime analyst, former SWAT team member, and also an author. I'm going to start with you, Lisa. You hear about these bruises on the deceased. Do you think that this could be some signs of domestic violence, and how do you think the prosecution is going to handle this testimony in their large case in chief?
Well, there's obviously no proof that it was domestic violence. She noticed bruises and she saw Emily become upset when she asked about it. So was Emily upset because there was an accusation that potentially her husband did that and she didn't like the accusation because it looks like it ended their friendship? Or was it because she was hiding it? A lot of times victims of domestic violence want to make it appear that their partner is the greatest thing in the world and they would never hurt them in any capacity. So certainly it could go either way.
Okay, so we're taking a little break here with this witness. This gives me the opportunity to bring in my two great guests and talk about what we just saw live in court. Lisa Lockwood, I want to start with you. I want to talk a little about the police activity and investigation techniques that really came out through this witness, including this test they did, which was called a SAG test. Lisa, what is the significance of that test that law enforcement did in relation to the facts of this case?
Okay, Imran, maybe I missed the information regarding the SAG test, so I don't feel comfortable commenting on that. But I will say that having the dogs out there immediately, using the bloodhounds needed to happen immediately when he made the report, just like we would do with an Amber Alert. We have somebody that walked away who's considered missing. It's suspicious. It's the first thing that would have happened. Delaying that till the next day didn't make any sense at all because we don't know. We don't have a time of death. We don't know the window of which she disappeared. He didn't report it until the next day, many, many hours after the fact. So there are a lot of pieces here that we're starting to see that don't add up. And then lastly, one of the things as far as getting the indictment for murder, all this time after the fact based on one forensic analysis through Dr. Spock to say this is enough for us to go forward and say that this was a staged suicide, to me is really pulling at straws because up until then, there was zero forensic evidence, nothing at the scene, nothing in the house. No cadaver dog was able to say that she was killed at the house, and nothing put him on that scene. They were not able to find anything forensically to link him to the place that she was found. So first-degree murder, I'm having a hard time swallowing that they were even able to go forward with that. Maybe second degree because it was a fight, but still, they have no evidence right now.
Yeah, Lisa, but you touched on, it was called a SAG test or something like that, but you just hit upon basically what I was referring to was the test with the doctor and the analysis done there to really bring law enforcement to the point of making the allegation that it was a staged suicide. So you have all these points within the police investigation that may be problematic for the prosecution. Lisa, I have another question for you. How do you think that the prosecution is going to deal with the points that the defense made on cross-examination when they redirect this witness? Do you think that the jury may be latching onto some of these discrepancies or lack of evidence, if you will, that we heard in the opening statement from the defense during the cross-examination of this witness? What do you think?
Well, we're not going to know until he actually takes the stand, but I think the only thing that the prosecution can stand on is his expertise and why he came to that conclusion. But think about this. We discovered that all that was left in her remains was about 18 pounds of bone, because 15% of the human body is bones, and she was about 100 pounds. All they had was 18 pounds remaining with very, very little mummified material. So what were they using? They're looking for fractures. Of course, they're able to find the hiatal, and I'm not a forensic analyst in any capacity, but I know when somebody is choked out, there are certain bones within the neck that do break, some don't, depending on the placement of it. And then the last thing that he came forward with was the bone in the nose. So with that, I don't know what could have happened to cause that type of trauma, but we also know that there were vultures and there were animals in that area who responded and actually tore away flesh. That's why we don't have any flesh. Less than 4 months later, you were literally left with 18 pounds of remains. And if she's 100 pounds, that would be 15 pounds of bones if we were doing an exact count, and 3 pounds of any type of tissue with that body.
Yeah, Lisa, that's a great analysis. Of course, with your law enforcement background, it's great to have your insight on that. And Lisa, I want to ask your law enforcement expertise here in terms of what we heard about this press conference. In your experience, can some of the statements that law enforcement makes at these pressers that they give come back to bite them later on in an investigation or during the prosecution of a case?
You bet, Imran. You need to make sure that you have all the facts during that press conference. And what we're about to find out is that the chief of police said that area was searched 3 times. And Diane Mashney was able to say that was not the case because they did not get inside within 100 feet of that area. They were just on the perimeter. So it's going to debunk the police officer's actual search.
Right. And, that's really important in terms of what you say to the press, including we as attorneys when we have a case, what is said to the press, and especially what our clients may be saying to the press. And the same thing goes with law enforcement. We're waiting to see what's going to be happening in this case in terms of whether his recollection is refreshed. But I want to give this opportunity to thank you, my 2 great guests today. I have Kurt Altman, criminal defense attorney out of Phoenix, Arizona, and of course, Lisa Lockwood. Stay tuned. Bob Bianchi is up next with the afternoon session here at Law and Crime. Thank you for joining me.